Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight on Monster Fridays, Coriander's with me and our special guest, Angela from Morbid Heart Designs. How are you ladies doing tonight?
Good.
All
Excited
right.
to be here. Talk
All
horror
right.
Yeah, how are
movies.
you?
I'm
Right?
excited. This is great. This is going to be our next franchise that we're going to talk about,
Mhm.
and it's an interesting franchise. So I'm pretty darn excited about it. Um, Before we get going, let's see who we have in the live chat, and then we'll do some quick takes and things like that. Patrick's in the chat saying, I think they should have kept Tony Todd as the face of death. I agree. I agree. I loved Tony Todd in these movies, and I wish
Hmm.
we could have seen more of him. That would have been great. Strange Monkey is in the chat saying, hello there. What's up?
Hello.
How you doing, man? Let's see. Neil from Neon Black Reviews is in the chat saying, when I hear Final Destination, I think Ali Larder. Yeah, I mean, she had a really good part in these first two movies, so it was really cool um, to see a returning character. We got TYTD in the chat saying, evening all, what's going on? What's going on?
Hello.
Triv's in the chat saying, here to party. All right.
Right?
That's awesome. And she's like, hey, Angela. That's awesome. DMC, my man DMC is in the chat saying, hey, Knight and Coriander. What's
Hello.
going on? How you doing, man? Nice to see you. Welcome. And let's see. Patrick, Holy Crow and All-Star panel tonight. Right. All right. We got Jake. Jake's in the chat too saying, hey, all. What's going on, Jake? How you
Hi.
doing, man? Nice to see you. All right. Oh, and Eric just jumped in. All right. Love Devin Sawa in this. Cool when we see him do horror. This, Idle Hands, and now Chucky. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Flamethrower jumped in too. Put it this way after watching part two, I refuse to drive behind a lumber truck. Right?
Proving my point from
Oh,
earlier.
Right?
yeah.
Very
A
good.
lot of these, like all these movies make you fear something from these. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's do a quick take, and we're still going to give people another minute to jump in here if they choose to do so. But let's do a quick take. Coriander, I'll let you start. This movie and this series. What's your quick take on it?
I mean, all I have to say is you can't cheat death because it always comes back for you.
Yeah, yeah, ain't that the truth? How about you, Angela?
I really can't disagree with anything that Coriander just said. So it was beautifully said. I agree with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in this movie, the thing about it is, it made me afraid of a lot of normal things in my life. You know what I mean? This movie and all the other ones, and I think that's what was really cool. And Angela was talking about that a little bit before we went live. Is just the concept of it, and we'll get into
Mhm.
that some more as well. But I think
Yeah,
it's a fantastic concept, and this movie definitely
definitely.
changed gears. Especially for the year 2000. We needed a fresh take in horror, and I think this tried and succeeded to a large degree of bringing something fresh. Um,
Hmm.
and also, just to also thank Angela for joining us tonight, which was really cool because
Yeah.
we've been wanting to get you on with us live for so long. So awesome,
Right?
you guys. I do have Angela's link to her channel in the description. Please, if you have not checked out her channel, please do so.
So
She's
I'm just
really
saying this without Night, knowing that I was going to say this, but you should
Yeah.
join us if you can for like all these movies.
We may or may not have
Yeah.
already talked about that as a
Ah,
possibility. And I'm
oh,
honored
that's
to be
cool.
asked. Thank you.
right.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Nice.
But yeah, so that'll be really fun. We got a few more people that jumped into the chat, and while you guys get situated there, we'll get finished getting set up. So
Mhm.
sit back, relax. You guys know what time it is. All right. Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks. We're talking about Final Destination. Coriander, I'll start with you. First, first things that come to your mind when this movie started. Anything that hit you right off the bat? Because I know Angela, myself, we hadn't seen this movie in a long time. So how about you
Mhm.
when this movie started? What'd you think?
You know, I've always been scared of flying. And I actually, the first time I ever flew, I was with my 8th grade class. We were flying to Florida. So I didn't have my parents, and it was terrifying, let me tell you. But you think this movie's all, yeah, this class, they're going to Paris, they're packing up, getting ready, and they get to the airport. And yeah, I mean, it all looks like it's going to go just fine. A typical, you know, packing trip and
Is this
heading
your
off.
first time
So
seeing it then? Just out of curiosity?
for me,
Yeah.
oh, no, no. I actually, when
Okay.
I saw this in 2000, I saw it in the drive-in. So yeah,
Oh, that'd be so cool.
it was.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, very, very, very cool. How about you, Angela? What were you thinking as the movie opened up and we see these kids are getting ready for this plane trip?
Not that it was gonna go as hardcore as it did so fast. You
Good
normally
point.
don't get that for a horror movie. There's usually some slow build up, or you get to know your characters, so that first death is a little bit more emotional or shocking, or yay, the asshole jock just got murdered or whatever. But this one was like, nope, nope, everybody you just met, they're gone.
Right. That's a good point.
Mhm.
That's a good point. I never really thought of it like that. It did really start off quick. I agree with that whole idea of the fear of flying too, man. Like, and I've been on a plane
Yeah.
a bunch of times, and
Mm,
even before I
just
saw this
once.
movie. Oh, just once for you?
Yeah, man. I haven't since. So yeah.
It's scary shit, man. It really is.
Yeah.
We'll need to change that when it's a little bit safer to travel.
Right?
I don't know.
Oh man.
You'd have to like drug me.
Real quick too in the chat, these guys are having fun in here. Strange Monkey had said that it looked like Tony Todd was in the stream with us.
Ah, wouldn't that be something?
That'd be cool.
I
Damn,
also
got
think
right?
Sean William Scott looks like it, and when you keep changing screens, I was like, "Oh, there's somebody here." Oh wait, nope, no, that's not a Nathan. So, thank you. I'm
Nice.
not the only one.
Right. Max in the chat saying, I think of the logs on the back of that truck. That is so true, man. Absolutely. Patrick saying the new intro is so hype. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot. We appreciate that. Max saying, never mind, I forget the first one was on the plane. That's right.
Spoilers, the logs are not in the first one at all.
Right.
I was actually
Yeah.
hoping that scene would come up because it's still traumatizing to this day, and I still
It
change
is.
lanes to this day. But I was like, oh, I guess it's not this one. By the time everything was done, I'm like, all right, I guess I need to buy the franchise.
Right?
Nice.
Jake saying, when I think of Final Destination, I think of Stifler, right? Yeah. Yeah. Eric says, it could be worse. Seeing Tony Todd is a lot better than when Knight had that pic of Busta Rhymes up. That's right.
Yeah, I'd leave.
Ginger
I'm sorry.
Ninja is in the chat. Hey all, I'm a bit late, but I made it. Welcome, man. But anyways, but let's get into a little bit more of this. I mean, once they're on the plane, and like Angela said, this thing, it went quick, and when I first saw it, I was thinking, wait a minute, they all died. And then of course, you've got that, whatever it is, that 2 seconds, and then you see that Alex, all of it was a vision that he had. And as soon as that happened, I was like, oh man, here we go. And then they start to kind of build the characters a little bit. You had seen the friendship that Alex had with Todd, and obviously, we saw Carter and Terry and Miss Lewton and all that. I'll throw it to you again, Coriander. At this point, obviously, I'm sure you figured that the plane was going to blow up. What did you think when it did?
Like you all said, it was like, holy shit, everyone's dead. This just started.
Right.
And it was
Right.
crazy. Yeah. He woke up from his dream and he's like shaken up. And then those girls come up to him, just like in his dream, saying, hey, can we have your seats? And
Yep.
he jumps up and he tries the whatever it is that comes down and you can put your tray on and the thing breaks. And so, yeah, I mean,
face going, I just saw this happen. This is no. Like his acting was so on point in that scene. I was like, I feel for you. I would probably be shitting my pants.
I would get
Yeah.
off the plane too. If I saw that,
Right?
frig that, I would be off. So
Yeah,
yeah.
man. And Angela, you know, when they got to the point when they got off of the plane, I mean, personally speaking, I was just like, wow, you guys saved yourself. You know, when you first watch this movie, you don't really know exactly how it was going to go.
Hmm.
But I got to admit, it was such an interesting take. And by the way, when the plane did explode, it looked so horrific. Like, I don't know about you guys, but it just looked really, really bad. And like I said, it's given me fear of flying ever since, even more so than before. I mean, people were flying out of the airplane and everything. For a movie made back in 2000, I think the effects were pretty good. What did
It
you think of
was
that, Angela?
Oh yeah. I think they held up really well. Like usually you can watch a movie and be like, oh, this is old. I don't remember one time watching it where I was like, oh, these effects are so outdated. This is so bad. So
Yeah.
I think I would put it as they held up real well.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely. How about you, Coriander? Do you think the same?
Yeah, I thought that scene was great. And what I just found out too, which, maybe you all knew this, but I didn't, but
Hmm.
that this movie was based on a trip where there was a high school class going off and it blew up, a plane blew up. So,
Mm,
yeah, I thought
Mm-mm.
that was crazy because I didn't know that before. So,
yeah, I didn't know that either.
yeah.
That's wow, that's good trivia. Flamethrower saying, imagine if they played part one as the in-flight film back in the day. Oh
They
God.
probably did.
I, yeah, they probably they probably did. I would have been so freaked out, man. Triv saying it's weird how there are so many awesome kills, but also so many crap ones as the series rolled along. Yeah, I mean, we're planning to go through the whole series, and I mean, in general, I think they did a pretty good job. But there were a couple that were kind of, you know, below this. But we'll get to that, you know, once we get there. But anyways, so these guys are saved. They get off of the plane, and then they're questioned by the FBI, which, of course, I guess that would make sense. Did you guys get a certain, feel for the characters that you either liked or didn't like or that interested you? And I'll start with you, Coriander.
You know, I always enjoyed what the hell, Alex, and of
Yeah.
course Clear. They're like the main two, and Carter. I
Mhm.
mean, he even lasted throughout this pretty much the whole thing too, almost.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did.
I mean, I didn't have a favorite, but it's
Mhm.
not like I didn't enjoy the cast.
Mhm.
That's a
Of
good
course,
point.
there was a couple where they're just so they can get picked off, because they didn't get too
Right.
deep, like Carter and his girlfriend,
Yeah.
but I didn't mind it, the cast.
Yeah. Well, and the thing at this point in the movie, once they've survived, the whole point of this movie is that they cheated death, but in the end, you can't really cheat death. So for me, this is
Yeah.
when the whole idea of the concept of the movie comes into play, and I'll bring it to Angela. As far as the concept of what this movie is, and obviously what they did later on in the series, what do you think that did for horror? Do you think that this was inventive, or did it interest you a lot, or how'd you take it?
I don't know how to answer that right now. I'm like, okay, back in the day, I liked horror, but I didn't have enough time in high school to watch a lot of horror.
Yeah.
Um, I really do think it did shape a lot, though, because it was a very creative concept.
Hmm.
A lot of the horror doesn't most mainstream horror does not go to the root of people's fears. It's very superficial, or how extreme can we kill people, or how much blood or boobs can we get away with. This one
Hmm.
doesn't really have much blood, doesn't have nudity, and it really went to everybody's really afraid of death. It's a universal fear that people can't escape, and I
Hmm.
think it was the first movie that I had seen, anyways. Even thinking about a lot of the indie things that I watched, there's not a lot that are willing to go to that universal root fear that everybody faces in their life.
Right.
And this one was like, guess what? You don't get to do
Hmm.
it once. You get to do it 2, maybe 3 times
That's a
before
good
death
point.
gets you.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good point. And we got Jill in the chat too saying, "Hey, what's going on, Jill?"
Hello.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely got to a universal fear, and like I said, this movie, even when I
I mean, you're
rewatched it for
talking
this,
about like reality. This is stuff
Mhm.
that could really happen, and that makes it a lot scarier than,
right,
your typical slasher that you can see coming at you. You can't
hmm
see fate. You don't know when it's coming. So
right,
yeah.
yeah, and it just felt like that there was no true way to win or survive. All you're doing
That's
is
the
You
like,
can
most
cheat it.
brutal
Yeah, you
part
can.
about it. Inevitably, it's gonna catch up with you.
It
yeah,
That's the
will.
most
I
brutal
mean,
part of it.
yeah,
yeah. I mean, Alex was smart to figure out the design, but
hmm
Mhm.
yeah, it finally caught up to him, and all of them, well, except for, Clear. But yeah.
right. We got John is in the chat saying, when I think of is being on a coaster at Six Flags with my kids and continuing to yell Final Destination throughout the ride. Hey, John, I am not going to lie, man. I actually did that. And that's too funny. I did that too at Six Flags. And I was there with my cousins and my brother who's not here tonight. But and I was saying that too. I was like, what about Final Destination? That's funny. But it did bring an extra layer of fear, and I love roller coasters,
Mhm.
but there was an extra
Yeah.
layer of fear because of Final Destination 3. It's crazy. Um, let's see, Ginger Ninja talking about one of the kills. Damn, did not see that coming. Right? I really didn't see it. I mean, yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Eric saying what I loved from this series was the Rube Goldberg effect of the deaths. One thing caused
Mhm.
another to happen, and so on until the victim
Yep.
was killed. Great use of creativity. Yeah,
Mhm.
man.
Yeah.
True enough. Jill saying, good point, Coriander, about fate. Yeah, absolutely. Strange Monkey saying, I always try to be careful with so many things because of this movie. Right?
Yeah.
It's true, man.
It
It is so
definitely
true.
makes you more aware and cautious of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Totally.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and before we get to the specific deaths, because that's kind of where the story takes place, I want to say one other thing about the concept of this movie. And you ladies, let me know what you think. But when I started seeing what was going on with this movie, it made me think of another favorite horror movie of mine from way back in the day that always wondered if there was some inspiration this movie took from, and that's The Omen. And
Oh.
in The Omen, like it was always these weird things that would kind of happen. I always think of that scene when David Warner gets killed by the plate of glass. There were a couple of things that happened beforehand. He had to be in a certain place, and then the truck, the gears moved on its own, and something moved out of the way for it to roll. And then it hit something so that the glass could shoot forward. So it was like almost that same type of idea. And sometimes I wonder about that. Do you guys think that there's any parallels between the two movies or anything? Or am I crazy?
Well, no, obviously you've got one where you have the devil that's, making these terrible things
Mhm.
happen,
Right.
which, yeah, a lot of these things happened in accident form,
Right.
or,
Right.
Mhm.
Damien cruising on his bike, an innocent child who supposedly you think is
Yeah.
innocent, but we
I
all
was
know
gonna say
he's
he's
not.
not innocent. Spoiler alert.
Exactly. Right. And with Final Destination, it's fate doing all this,
Mhm.
Yes.
so
Absolutely.
yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised if there was inspiration in the storytelling device because that's a great way to build up fear because you know something's coming that the character doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a
Yeah.
great storytelling device to build that tension and that oh no, is it gonna happen? Am I right with how I see this playing out? But I
Yeah.
don't think the story. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would
Well,
be surprised if it didn't influence the storytelling.
yeah. And that's all that I
Mhm.
meant because obviously
Okay.
one is about an actual antichrist, and one is about a physical
Fate,
force or
Both
death.
fate or
excellent
whatever.
movies. Watch them all.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely.
They are.
Triv says that's a way good thought about the Omen.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, thanks. All
Yeah.
right. Neil saying great point, Knight. The Omen had several deaths where there were clues as to what was going to happen. All right.
Yeah.
Woohoo. Yeah, I mean that's what popped into my mind is just how these things were just these dominoes of something that's going to happen. And like you said, Angela, something's going to happen. You don't know exactly when. And sometimes you'll get to that point where you think it's going to happen and it doesn't. It goes for another
Mhm.
2 seconds or 5 seconds. So you're always, for me, I'm always on edge. Like, when is it going to happen? And it's interesting. But let's get to some of the death scenes because as the story goes on, that's what starts to happen is death, quote unquote, death starts to come back for these folks that escaped or cheated death.
Yeah.
And after the plane crash and everyone's kind of doing their own thing, the first thing is, or the first death happens to Alex's best friend, Todd. And Coriander, I'll throw it to you. We're talking about what I'd like to call beware your bathroom. So what did you think of that scene with Todd?
I mean, that wasn't it. They're all intense, but this one kind of got me because, I mean, the kid, you could see the toilet starts leaking and the
Hmm.
water's coming his way, and he's not really
Yeah.
paying attention, and he's, shaving, and he's like getting a little cut, and the water's coming closer, and then he's going over towards the shower, and his mom,
Hmm.
it's like, of all things to hang your laundry in the bathroom. Okay, so
Right.
he's taking that stuff away and he slips on the water and that
Hmm.
cord gets wrapped around his neck. And it's crazy because, I mean, he's struggling. The shampoo falls, he can't catch
Yeah.
his grip, he's clawing, his blood vessels in his eyes pop.
Yeah,
Oh,
And
that
man.
was a
it's
brilliant
a,
detail. That one sold it.
yeah,
Right?
and
It really did.
yeah, and
Mhm.
you're gonna die. So
Yeah.
yeah, that got me. Yeah.
If you like
Yeah.
true crime, the moment that happens, you're like, you know your shit. You hired the right people.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it was a rough death, man. And when I watched it,
Mhm.
and again, I've seen this movie before. It'd been a little while since I had seen this one, but I knew what was going to happen. But
Yeah.
I forgotten like the little bits leading up to it, how, the exact order, because it was a couple times, like you
Right.
said, it was a couple times he almost bit the bullet, but he didn't, whether it was with the razor blade or the water coming from under the toilet, and then he's
Yeah.
going into the bathtub. But it was brutal, man, because I sat there and I even cringed. I was like, oh man.
Fate
But
worked hard
Yeah.
for that death. Fate
right?
earned that death.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, at this point in the movie too, we find that Alex saw a vision of it. He put the clues together when the paper got all ripped up by the
Mhm.
fan, and he saw the piece of paper
Yeah.
on his knee that said Todd. And so, of course,
Mhm.
he's heading over to his buddy's house. He's too late, but this is the beginning of him understanding maybe I can see these events before they happen, which I think was a really good
Mhm.
added little thing in this movie because now your protagonist or your lead, he has a capability that's interesting. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And that carried a lot of the movie. And I think also it really gave him and Ali Larter really good depth to their characters because, like Angela said, the movie started right off the ground running. So we really didn't get a lot of character, depth or anything. But at this point, we started to see a little bit. So definitely a cool
It
death, the
added a
first one.
fun dimension to the story itself because there was that
Hmm.
little bit of knowledge and then the flashes that come through as the
Hmm.
story progresses and that Ali Lauder's character Claire starts to see things too. It's just like really
Hmm.
fascinating concept of what if we could do that in real life? Would you want that power? I don't think you'd want
Right.
that.
Yeah. But of course, and you're right. That's what I was going to say too, is
Mhm.
that would you want that ability? Because when he was explaining it to her, and we'll get into the next death, but when he was explaining it to her, she said, we could go crazy thinking about all these different types of clues, quote unquote clues, because they were sitting there at the coffee place or whatever, and she said, well, we're drinking coffee, so should I think the C in coffee and the E at the end stands for choke? I'm going to choke on my coffee. So it's like, but she's right, it could drive you absolutely
Mhm.
batshit. So that was like another one of those things. Let me just catch up to the chat here for a second here too, guys. Trib was saying one thing I'll always give them credit for is building tension for each death. I
Yeah.
agree, absolutely. Eric saying Todd's death is the most brutal to me, slow and painful. Right? It
Yeah.
was slow and painful, man. It
I
was.
think that was good storytelling, though, because it's the first death we get after the plane accident. So it's just
Mhm.
showing you how bad this can get.
Good
I think
point.
if they did a wimpy death, it wouldn't have been as powerful for the story progression.
Right. Yeah, I agree. No, that's a good point. It
Mhm.
was definitely powerful. And we got Lamar in the chat saying, "Good evening. What's going on, Lamar? How you doing? Welcome,
Hello.
welcome. Nice to see you." Neil saying, "I've heard these films described as slashers where death is the
That's
unseen killer."
exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. When I saw this, I thought about reality, Lamar says. Right?
Exactly, man.
And
That makes it
Strange
even
Monkey.
scarier.
Yeah, that bathroom death was so brutal. It really was, man. No doubt. TYTD said Mrs. Luton's death was a lesson in slapstick. Like if I could go wrong, it will go wrong. Yeah, absolutely. True enough. Absolutely. But the next death, and I'll kind of take that one that we see is the bus stop death for Terry. And that it was kind of, again, it was a scene where they were talking. First it was Alex and Clear, about the signs. And Alex had said
Yeah.
something that was pretty interesting about, if we open ourselves up to the signs. And I was like, yeah, I kind of dig that. But all of a sudden you got Carter coming around the corner with Terry, and they
In
jump out
that
of the
beautiful
car.
car.
Yeah, and they start arguing, and and blah blah blah, and she's just tired of it, man, because she's tired of all the bullshit,
Yeah.
because obviously
Is
this
it
death, huh?
is it bad I wanted him to be dead? I hated Carter. Like I was like, can you just die
I
next,
think
please?
everybody
Like
hated this
all
dude.
this
Right,
drama is you're causing all this shit that doesn't need to
Yeah,
happen.
right. I
exactly.
know exactly. And then of course she's pissed off, and I don't know why, but she's stepping back, and like
Mhm.
someone in the chat said, it just happened really quick. And
Mhm.
wow, what a gut punch! I
Yeah.
mean, it was so quick and so shocking that
Splatter.
even the
Yeah.
characters just had this look on their face like, oh no, what just happened? And it was just crazy. It was like
Mhm.
another like gut punch. I mean, seriously. I mean, and I'll throw it to you guys. What did you think of that one, Coriander?
Uh, It was great. I mean, because you
Hmm.
didn't expect it,
Right.
and then the next thing you know, like you said, she's splattered and they're getting sprayed. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was quite a
I
scene.
feel like her death is kind of super sad because she finally stood up to him. I don't think
Right.
he was a good boyfriend, and for her to
Right.
finally like
No.
decide I am done, I am out of all this, and then to
Hmm.
die, I was like, oh no, like we don't know much about you, but there was clear growth in your character, and you're gone.
Right. Right. And it was just so, again, it wasn't a slow death, but it was
Just, you got to
still
think it
so
was quick.
bad.
Her
Mhm.
Well,
death was probably the quickest. So,
yes, yes.
I'd take
No, that's
that.
true.
Definitely, hands well, one of the quickest. I mean, we'll go into details later. No spoilers just yet.
Right? Well, let's throw this out there too, because we've got to also talk about the scene where we had my man, the legendary, the great Tony Todd, when they were checking on the body of Todd. First of all, I
Yeah.
just think that he was just, he's always awesome, in my
He
opinion,
makes me
anyways.
Mhm.
happy.
Doesn't he though? I mean,
Right?
and it was just such a cool ass scene. I'll start with you, Coriander. What did you think about this scene with Tony Todd, and what he represented, and just the creepiness and what was going on? Him as a more quote unquote mortician.
Yeah. He was perfect to be the one to tell these guys about death and
Yes.
how you can't mess with it and it's going to get you no matter what. And I
Mhm.
Hmm.
loved how he's like, and I'll see you soon.
Right.
So yeah, it couldn't have been played by a perfect person. So yeah.
Right. Right. How about you, Angela?
I sometimes wonder, thinking back on that scene, was that really the mortician or the person performing the autopsy? I don't remember his exact title in the story, Or was he possessed and death was actually speaking to them through that moment? Or was he just some random guy just messing with their heads hardcore? Like, either way, it's interesting to think about the different dynamics, but I kind of want to say he got possessed briefly and death was literally talking to them.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
with how creepy it was.
it was creepy, and throughout the other movies, it becomes even more creepy because he knows things that he probably shouldn't know, or probably couldn't know unless there was something like you're alluding to, something supernatural or another force that's
And Tony
intervening.
Todd's staring at me creepily. I might need to put a post-it note now. This is
You thinking it's death?
just in case.
Just in case.
He's now kidding.
But I mean, yeah, it's just crazy to wonder what's going on with him, Triv is saying Tony Todd is the horror icon we need more than we deserve. Yeah, right? Absolutely, man. There's no doubt about it. Eric saying my favorite part of the movie is Alex's paranoia, especially by the time he's all alone in the cabin. Yeah, I mean, this it went pretty dark. It really, really did. There's no doubt about that. But after the bus stop death, the next one that we have, the main one that we get next after that is obviously, Miss Lewton's death, teacher. And this one was really dominoes. I'll start with you, Coriander. What did you think about her death?
I mean, this poor woman.
Yeah.
She didn't really have a chance. I mean, how the hell did she even get her neck cut? Her like computer or something? What was it?
Yeah.
The glass exploded.
Yes.
Yeah, water leaked on it, I guess. Yeah, and it exploded. And I mean, her neck,
her alcohol on it.
Yeah, and mistake because it slits her throat, and she's going into the kitchen, and she what the hell, did she slip again or something? Right?
Well,
I don't know.
She was cut and she was bleeding, and then
so she slipped on her blood, and I'm just trying to figure out how she fucking fell. And then she reaches
at the
for
image right now. When she threw that cloth over the knives, it's been a long time, so I forgot how she died. I was like, "Oh, that's gonna haunt your ass. You are gonna regret that choice." And then when she's reaching up for her, I was like, "I told you."
Yeah, and she pulls on the towel, and then the knife comes right on her, and then that's the first part. But she wasn't dead yet, Coriander. She wasn't dead yet.
I feel so bad for Alex in this entire scene because all he wanted to do was save her.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he actually was at the house because he, obviously at this point he figured it out, and he also figured out the order in which they were going to die. So he was at the house, and well, first he got taken away by the FBI because she called the FBI on him. And he gave them his rendition of what's going on. They didn't believe him. They had to let him go. But he went back, and this was right when she got stabbed. And he actually was in the house with her as she was dying. But then there was that little explosion, that mini explosion. And then the chair falls on the knife to really stab her, to kill her. I was like, oh my God, this poor woman. It was like 4 or 5 things that happened to lead up to that. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy, man. It really is. I felt, like you say, Coriander, I felt really, really bad for her. There was no doubt about that. But real quick too, in the chat, Neil was saying Tony Todd's scene in Murder Set Pieces was hilarious. Tony Todd is just awesome, man. He really, really is. Strange Monkey saying so much went wrong in this scene. Terrible. Yeah, it did. It really, really did. But yeah,
it kind of makes you wonder if the writer really had it out for a teacher that she might have been based off of and let all of their anger out in the writing. How much went wrong is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's a good point too. You never know, because obviously a lot of times when these things are being written, they're based off of maybe some type of reality of sorts or whatever. But I don't know. But all of that happens, and he's running. Alex runs away. The house explodes. It's a huge ass explosion. It's just ridiculous. That's the other thing too. She was dead, right? And then the house exploded. It's like, wow, this lady really had it bad. Because you got to remember, before this scene, she wanted to leave town because she was just so distraught, all the traumatic stress and all that. She wanted to leave
I
town.
like they pulled in the survivor guilt with one of them because that would legit,
Yes,
in my opinion, happen to at least one person in a group. So I really appreciate that they touched upon the survivor guilt.
that's a good point. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and it made sense. It really did make
Mhm.
sense. But after that, we have our scene at the tracks, the railroad tracks. And yeah, man, there was a couple things that were going on there. Coriander, I know
Mhm.
you enjoy the vehicle and stuff like that, so I'll let you take this one. What did you think of how this death started to happen? Because Carter obviously was losing his mind. He's driving as if to kill himself because he's like, no one can control my fate. I control my life, I control my death, and all that type of stuff. And he goes to the railroad tracks. What did you think of that scene?
It's a shame because that nice car gets ruined and it's a bummer. Carter, shit, it's too bad he wasn't in it. But, I'm more upset about the car than him. But
Right,
anyway, yeah. No, he got lucky. I mean, y'all knew that somehow he was going to get stuck because he waited too long to get out of the
Mhm.
car and the train was right there. And
right.
of course, Alex had the vision of the seatbelt ripping
Yes.
and he knew that he'd be able to save him. So yeah, he got
Yeah.
lucky. And of course, poor Stifler, he's all, I told you, I'm not gonna go near you, you're gonna die. And then the next thing you know, half of his head's gone. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
great
it was
scene.
yeah, it was crazy how all that happened because you didn't expect it. Angela, how about you? How did that scene hit you? Because at first, when I first saw this, I really thought Carter was gonna die.
Mhm. I was holding my breath. I don't know if I should admit that or not, but I was holding my breath at points and going, okay, nope, nope, that's not going to happen yet. They did a really good job with is he taunting death too much? Is death going to take him?
Right.
Um and I Stifler, we're just going to call him Stifler even though that's not his name. He's forever Stifler. Everybody, you can tell when somebody grew up if he's Stifler
Right.
or not. When he died, excuse me, I was like, wait, that came out of nowhere. I
Right.
didn't see that coming. I mean, you could see it wobbling. You could
Yes.
see the metal piece wobbling, and it's just, but who's it going to get? I
Mhm.
was not expecting that.
Yeah. It was definitely a gut punch. I didn't see
Mhm.
it. Like I said, I thought Carter was gonna die. He barely gets out. The car gets destroyed by the train, and you.
I did want to see more of the Stifler character, so that was disappointing. I did enjoy his comic relief.
Yeah, I mean, he was the comedy man. So at that
Mhm.
point, I was just thinking, all right, so who's going to be next? Because you got to remember, Alex did not tell them which one of them was going to die first, between Carter and Billy. They both
Mhm.
obviously were afraid it was them, but nobody knew for sure. And, but when it happened, he was like, yeah, I intervened and I saved Carter, so it skipped you and all this type of stuff. So now the whole idea of the design of death and cheating it changed a little bit, which I thought was interesting too, because that was kind of how they were going to try to um, win, so to speak. You know what I mean? And that was an interesting thing that we saw. We would see later on in the franchise as well, which again, I think that this movie had a lot of cool things in it, man. It really, really did. um, Real quick too in the chat, we got Seth. Seth's in the chat, Hellbound himself, saying it's great to see everyone. Hope everyone is having a great night. Absolutely, man. How are you
Yeah.
doing? Welcome to the chat. Nice to see you.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. Strange Monkey saying, my brothers and I kept rewinding that death scene many times because it was so unexpected. Laugh out loud. Right?
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, and it had a viciousness to it as well, man, because he survived and well, they all survived at that point, and obviously, like we said, Stifler's just kind of talking some smack, and I'm gonna stay away from you, I'm gonna get away from you, and then next thing you know, bam, that piece of metal from the train track
But
gets hit,
again,
you know.
that's yeah, again, that's like a death that I would take versus, the teacher or the
Mhm.
bathtub.
Mm,
Because again, that would be quick. So
right,
he got
right.
lucky.
Yeah, he
With
did,
where
I
he got
guess.
hit, yeah, it would be super quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. But after this, you know, it's pretty much down to the last three. We got Carter, Clear, and Alex. And kind of what Eric in the chat was alluding to at this point, Alex, you know, he goes into the cabin alone, and he's just trying to. His paranoia was so high, but you can understand why, man. He's like barricading himself. He's using duct tape to keep things tied down. It was creepy. What do you think of that, Angela? I'll let you go with that.
I am the type of person, I would have done the exact same thing. I would bubble wrap everything. The knives would be outside. I don't know how I would cut up my food. Probably have to go on a raw food diet just to survive, because you can't cook either. Like,
right.
The rabbit holes, like, my brain already works this way. There's a reason why I'm Morbid Heart Designs. My brain's already messed up, and death's always immediately the answer to everything. So I already do this. I just don't act on the impulses, because I realize, like, to legitimately act on it is kind of on the legit crazy side, or I need a psychological evaluation. But my brain already goes down the possible ways to die all the time.
Right. I hear you. What about you, Coriander?
I mean, you wouldn't have to worry about starving, right? Because baby food. You can live off of baby food and you'd be all right.
Yeah, he was eating something out of a can.
It was freaking deviled ham. That shit's nasty. Yeah.
Well, what'd you think of the scene, though, as far as how he was dealing with things?
I mean, anything could take you out. So for him to barricade shit and try to reinforce things that didn't look quite right or loose, it was smart, because you never know what'll take you out.
Right.
I love the one-sided banter of, I didn't see that one. That was hilarious. It was a perfect timing for some tension relief.
Yeah, I mean, he started to lose it a little bit, it seemed like, you know, and you can understand it, because he sees death as something physical, you know, an actual physical thing, because he knows about the design, and he's seen the signs, the you know, he's seen the little, you know, out of the corner of his eye, the shadows and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, people see it. They see it before they die. They feel it and they see it. So
right, you know, the wind blows or whatever, you hear a sound or whisper or whatever. But he was really starting to lose it on his own, trying to barricade everything. He's tying down everything. He's got gloves on. He's eating out of a can. You know, it's just pretty crazy. But what a way to live, man. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. This movie is definitely dark in that sense, because even though he was able to save himself and others, ultimately he can't save himself and the others. You know what I'm saying? He's trying, you know, he's giving it a good shot, and he's smart enough to figure things out. But at the end of the day, it's a race that he's never going to win. You know, eventually he's going to lose it. But anyways, but at the end, he realizes that Clear is the one who's next on the list, and she's dealing with the power line that gets cut and is trying to electrify her. That was a really rough scene. I mean, Coriander, what'd you think of that scene? I mean, it was literally, the line looked like it was actually chasing her as she ran back to her house and was climbing up to her window.
Yeah, well, she was trying to save her dog, which I would have done the same damn thing.
Right.
And thankfully, they did not kill the dog. I always appreciate when the dog or the cat does not get killed.
Good point. Good point.
Right?
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, she climbed up to her window, she jumped into her bedroom, lights are busting up, bulbs are busting, and she's running down the stairs. And so anyways, Alex realizes that he comes basically to save her, and then he says, "Hey, look, I'm going to save you," because she got into her car, and he says, "Don't touch anything because you're grounded because of the tires." And he basically says, "I'll grab the power line and you get out of here." So basically, he's going to sacrifice himself at the end. And she's begging him, you know, not to do that. But he's like, "Look, one of us have to survive this thing." And so he goes to grab the line and then gets thrown back. And you think that he dies. And the movie kind of does that fade, you know, type of thing. And then you realize that he didn't die, now, which was a shock to me, because I was like, wow, okay. So, Angela, we're basically coming up to to the finale here, and it's kind of got that multiple twist, but the
Mhm.
final, and I guess I will say death. I mean, obviously it is a spoiler, but read the signs. What'd you think of this final scene and how it played out once we realized that Alex did not die?
Remember how I said I wanted Carter to die, like first? He finally died, and I was like, yeah. But also, it again with the girlfriend goes back to that kind of tragic thing. He's such a selfish character that he
Yeah.
actually ended up saving Alex, and in doing so, it went back and got him. And
Right.
you're watching the things escalate going down as everything's going down. Like Death's prepared, Death's backed up, like something's gonna happen. And you're like, wow, Death's not playing around anymore. Like shit's getting
Right.
real because we're seeing the multi things happening. And as he saves Alex and stands up and that sign comes down, you're like, didn't quite see that coming, but that's what came.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it was just crazy because it was kind of like you had this like double twist right in a row to keep you guessing, because as soon as he saves Alex and he's like, I forgot what he said, but Alex said something like, um, I wasn't next or something like that. And then all of a sudden you see that look on Carter's face and he's like, oh crap, as the sign is coming. Coriander, what did you think of that for the finale, for the ending?
I mean, it was unexpected because you think that they're safe, that, you know, maybe they did cheat death and they
Right.
figured out the design and it's over.
Yeah,
But
because
obviously not. And it's kind of crazy too, because you got to think when he goes and saves Alex and jumps and saves, you know, you got to remember that sign has got to come back. I mean, I wouldn't have stood directly up because that fucked him right there, because that's what killed him. If he like veered off to the side, crawled, and then got up and did his
Right.
thing, he would have survived. But dumbass,
But he didn't know
he
the
got
sign
it.
was coming. We as the audience got that little information.
But if it's
Yeah.
swinging, I mean, if it's swinging, it's not
But it
just
was
going to swing once and not
out of his
come
side
back.
vision, though. He didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, and plus
I guess you're right. You are right. I will take
Well,
back everything I just said.
well, I think the thing of it too was that he was arguing, you know, because he was talking about, I'm the safest person here, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, he was totally not thinking right. And of course, Alex at that point kind of figured it out, like, oh crap, you know, this is still going on. And, you know, Carter was just as usual being Carter. It was funny because when that scene first started and they were, you know, they had taken a plane. By the way, this is months after Alex almost dying. This is months after. I think it's like 6 months later. And they take a plane and they finally go to Paris or wherever. And, you know, they're hanging out. And like Carter said, who would have thought that we'd be sitting here having a drink together and blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking to myself, wow, he's finally being decent. But then, you know, the jerk inside of him kind of came back out near the end because they started to argue about the fact that death is still after them. You know what I'm saying? And
You
he's
know,
like,
once
you're
an asshole,
crazy.
always an asshole. Yeah.
It's not something you
That's
can
true.
change.
No,
Yeah, that's
you
true.
can hide it for a little bit, but it always fucking comes back and creeps out.
Oh, that's true. That's true, man. But yeah, I think that's why he wasn't even thinking about the sign coming back, because he was just being a jerk and arguing and just being Carter, you know, being Carter. Triv says, moral of the story, don't get complacent. That's true. Although it was months later, so I kind of wondered to myself, you know, how comfortable they were. I mean, obviously they thought they had cheated death for good. So it's
I
pretty
think it's
interesting.
human nature to become complacent after that long.
Yeah,
you can only
right.
live on guard and alert for so long before you just are too exhausted.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. Strange Monkey saying, so who's next? Laugh out loud. Right? That's what this movie was all about. Is like, who's next, man? It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, but yeah, that's the ending. We see the sign coming down behind Carter, and he just has this look on his face like, oh shit. And then it just fades to black, you know, and I'm like, wow, that was a pretty good movie. You know, it was different, it was fresh. Like we talked about, and Coriander, obviously, you know this, when we did our top 10 horror movies of the 2000s. This movie came along at a time when we needed something fresh in the genre, because we had already kind of gone past the Scream phase and all the
Yeah.
imitators of Scream.
This brought,
And
like how Scream did for the slasher. I mean,
yeah,
this kind of woke horror up too and brought a new,
Mhm.
like you said, fresh look on reality,
yeah,
so
yeah. I
reality
mean,
horror. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was a totally new thing with a mythology that was wide open.
Yeah.
As we will see in the next few installments, it could be anything. And and
Yeah,
and these
man.
movies really did make you think about any and everything could be dangerous to you. Death could
Yeah.
get
I
you in
mean,
almost any way.
yeah, I've always wanted to do the LASIK surgery so I would not have to wear glasses and open my eyes when I wake up and see a clear, picture.
Mhm.
But after
Yes.
this fucking movie, oh my God, I can't remember which one it was in.
Yeah, I
Oh
know
my
which one.
God, I don't think I'll ever get that. Just like step on a plane again. So yeah, no.
Right. Neil saying, "You're only living on borrowed time." Ha ha ha.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you never know when
Triv
you're gonna
saying,
go.
"Yep." Triv saying, "Don't forget to drop a like." Yes, please. Thank you very much, Triv. Please give the video a like. That would help support the channel, and we'd appreciate it. But really cool movie. Angela, any final thoughts for you on Final Destination?
You can't cheat death. And we don't know what happened to the other two. They were still alive when we last saw them in Paris, so stay tuned for the next one.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I think and that's another thing too. I think that was a great way to end that
Mhm.
movie because you really didn't know and you were really, if you enjoyed the movie, which I think most people did when they watched it, you were really like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And then of course, as we know, when the sequel came out, that was the question. It's like, okay, so in other words, they were world building basically, and it
Mhm.
was it was really, really cool. I think it's a very smart movie. TYTD says it's a film that post Scream felt like a breath of fresh air for the genre. 2 and 3 built on that and even more out there in bizarre ways. It looks great too. Absolutely. And also saying, even though it isn't one I'd grab right away on a movie night, I still totally understand why it's been so popular. Agreed. Agreed. It's for me, it's one of those, it's almost, I don't know if this sounds weird, but it's kind of like a comfort horror movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, you watch it and it definitely can shake you up and creep you out, but it's a comfortable horror movie to watch because you do have those moments of comedy and Angela had
Mhm.
talked a little bit about how it kind of bleeds into pop culture and real world, so it's kind of like, oh man, I'm afraid of flying, and then of course I'll sit there and think, this is just a movie, right? So it works on a bunch of different levels, I think. Coriander, any final thoughts for you on Final Destination? Are you excited about going through this series?
I enjoyed all these movies. They're fun. It gives you, different takes on how you could die, whether it's a
Mm,
roller coaster, a fucking tanning bed, or getting a massage. I mean,
mhm.
it could be anything.
Right. Absolutely. And Triv is saying in the chat, this and The Faculty are two faves of the era. That's a good point. Yeah, The Faculty as well. And I know Kill really loves that one. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while though, so we might have to talk about that one as well. Who knows? But anyways, guys, that's about all we have for Final Destination. For you guys in the chat or you guys watching the replay, definitely give the video a like. That would really help
Mhm.
support us, and we would definitely appreciate that. Also, more importantly, make sure to leave a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think about Final Destination. What are your favorite scenes? Do you have a favorite death sequence? And are you excited about any of the other movies in the series that we'll be touching upon? Also, make sure that you check out Angela's channel. I have the link in the description. Check her out. Give her a sub. She's really, really awesome. A lot of great content on her channel as well. And obviously, Angela, we thank you for joining us here
Thanks for
tonight. It's
having
been
me.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And Triv saying, great movie. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think she's talking about The Faculty. But yeah, it is. And one of these days we'll have to talk about that one. We'll see. See when we can fit it into the schedule. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it, and we will catch you guys later. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace out. Catch you guys later.
Abchich,